America just turned 250 years old. Fireworks, parades, speeches about liberty and freedom and the greatness of the nation. And in the middle of all of that celebration, I need you to hear a question that was asked 174 years ago. A question that has never been answered. A question that still echoes in 2026. What to the slave is your 4th of July? That question was asked by Frederick Douglass on July 5th, 1852. Not July 4th, July 5th. Because he knew that celebration without truth was just noise. And today, we're going to find out why that question still matters on America's 250th birthday. I was personally asked the question, as a black man and as an Army veteran who served this country, what does the 4th of July mean to me personally? Have I ever felt that tension between loving America and knowing what America has done to people who look like me? My answer, I am not, nor have I ever been of the persuasion that I am to willingly celebrate the 4th of July. Primarily because, although I am an American, America has consistently demonstrated that she has not accepted me and the black race entirely. Now, as a child, I was naive. I loved the fireworks, the parades, and the patriotic symbolism. Why? Because I embraced what the American school system persuaded me to believe. But as I began to grow and began to form the mental capacity to discern truth from fiction, I began to face a harsh reality, and that is, if America had her way, I would not be here. The Declaration of Independence says that all men are created equal, yet I was born in America during the Jim Crow era, a time when white supremacy flaunted its unchecked abuse of power, a time that was before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So I began learning how when America was enjoying her fireworks, black soldiers were being asked to fight her wars, but were placed into segregated units because America saw us as separate but not equal. While America was enjoying her parades, I watched my grandmother be humiliated in a small town of New Bern, Tennessee, without conscience, as she stood in line waiting to be served. But every time a white person came in, she had to bow her head and take a step back to allow the white person to step in front of her. Why? Because the Civil Rights Bill had been signed 4 years prior, but that law didn't transcend into social acceptance there. You see, under Jim Crow, the black man or woman had no rights that the white man needed to respect. While America was proudly waving her flags, I watched a white man hand my father, a U.S. Army veteran, a letter that said, "I cannot sell, rent, nor lease this property to anyone other than the Caucasian race." Therefore, denying my father, once again, a U.S. Army veteran, the opportunity to purchase a home outside of a redlined district so that he could start building generational wealth for his family. Fast forward to the year 2000. I had completed 20 years of military service with the U.S. Army, retiring a highly decorated combat veteran, when I had received a phone call from a job offer I had applied for as a human resource manager at a prestigious hotel in downtown Dallas. The lady marveled over my resume and said that I was the perfect candidate for the position. She requested that I appear in person to be introduced to the hiring manager the next day. Upon my arrival, I checked in, but waited over an hour and had not been called. After following up with the clerk, a lady called me back to her desk. I jokingly said, "I thought maybe you guys forgot about me." Without making eye contact and maintaining a not so welcoming demeanor, she replied, "I thought you were one of the drivers. And by the way, the position is no longer available." Obviously, my name, Zimmerman, and my communication skills didn't register that I was a black man. As time passed, I witnessed, along with you, how America attempted to delegitimize her first black president, and we witnessed her outrage after he won. Just 5 years ago, we watched a white man holding the highest office in the land falsely claim that 5 locations that consisted primarily of blacks and people of color stole his election without providing any sufficient evidence to substantiate that claim. The response: thousands of angry white men stormed the U.S. Capitol, the symbol of American democracy, and beat the police with the American flag, defecated the building, and every last one of them were pardoned. I cannot and will not accept lectures about patriotism from those who ignore, excuse, or defend these glaring contradictions. As for patriotism, we built this country. We shed blood, sweat, and tears for it. Therefore, I follow the spirit of the likes of the Frederick Douglasses, Sojourner Truths, Medgar Evers, Fannie Lou Hamer, Malcolm X, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As for patriotism, I followed the spirit of all the black service members that had served before me. I even followed the spirit of white Americans like Joan Trumpauer Mulholland, and the spirit of my white brothers and sisters who had the courage to serve as freedom riders. I am where I am today, not because of America, but because of particular people in America. People like those who I mentioned, people like my grandparents and my parents. It was their spirit whom my service of patriotism aligned with. Frederick Douglass was born into slavery in Talbot County, Maryland, around February of 1818. I say around because enslaved people were not given the dignity of knowing their own birthday. Think about that. They stripped away something as basic as the day you were born. He was separated from his mother almost immediately after birth. That was done on purpose. Slaveholders knew that if they allowed mothers and children to bond, love would grow, and love made enslaved people harder to control. His father was believed to be a white man, possibly his enslaver. That tells you everything you need to know about the power dynamic of slavery. One of Douglass's earliest memories was watching his Aunt Hester being brutally whipped by an enslaver. He was just a child. And that was his introduction to what slavery really was. Enslaved people could not vote, could not legally marry, could not own property, could not travel freely, could not testify against white citizens in court, could not determine the future of their own children. The freedom America was celebrating did not belong to them. When Douglass was sent to Baltimore to live with Hugh and Sophia Auld, something happened that would change the course of his life and the course of American history. Sophia Auld began teaching young Frederick to read. When her husband found out, he shut it down immediately. And what he said next became one of the most important moments in Douglass's entire life. He said, "If you teach that boy how to read, there will be no keeping him." Douglass never forgot those words, because in that moment he understood something that slaveholders had always known. Education is the enemy of oppression. So Douglass did what our people have always done. When someone tries to block the door, he found another way in. He traded food with local white children in exchange for reading lessons. He studied every newspaper, every sign, every printed word he could find. Literacy gave Frederick Douglass freedom of mind before he ever achieved freedom of body. And that is a lesson for every single person watching this video right now. If you want to understand Frederick Douglass the way that he deserves to be understood, you need to read Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom by David W. Blight. This is the definitive biography. It won the Pulitzer Prize for good reason. It takes you inside the mind of one of the greatest abolitionists America ever produced and shows you how one man's refusal to be silent changed an entire nation. You can find this book in our Black History Library at the link in the description. Do not just watch history. Own it, study it, pass it down. As a young man, Douglass was sent to work under Edward Covey, a man whose entire reputation was built on breaking the spirit of enslaved people. Covey beat him, degraded him, tried to destroy everything inside him. And then one day, Douglass fought back. He did not escape that day, but something happened in that fight that slavery could not take back. Douglass later wrote that the confrontation revived within him a sense of manhood that slavery had tried to destroy. He said that from that moment forward, he was no longer afraid. And in September of 1838, disguised as a sailor and carrying borrowed identification papers, Frederick Douglass escaped slavery and headed north. He did not do it alone. A free black woman named Anna Murray helped make it possible. She would become his wife and his lifelong partner. Remember her name. But freedom did not mean equality. The North still practiced segregation. Black Americans still face restrictions on voting, education, housing, and employment. Douglass had escaped slavery, but he had not escaped racism. Right here, right now. If this story is impacting you the way that I hope that it is, subscribe to this channel because this is exactly what we do here. We unlock the stories they buried. We tell the truth every single week. So subscribe and hey, bring somebody with you. On July 5th, 1852, the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society invited Frederick Douglass to speak. The nation had just celebrated Independence Day. People expected patriotic words. What they got was a challenge that still has not been fully answered. Douglass stood up and asked, "What to the American slave is your 4th of July?" And then he answered his own question. To the enslaved Americans, Independence Day was not a celebration of liberty. It was a reminder of exclusion. While white Americans celebrated freedom, enslaved people lived in chains. While citizens praised self-government, enslaved people had no political voice. While America talked about liberty, families were being separated and sold at auction blocks. Douglass was not attacking America. He was demanding that America become what it claimed to be. There's a difference, and that difference still matters in 2026. America in 2026 is not America in 1852. Slavery has been abolished. Segregation is illegal. Voting protections exist that previous generations could not have imagined. Progress should be recognized, and I am not here to pretend otherwise. But Frederick Douglass also taught us that patriotism requires honesty, because the methods used to restrict black power did not disappear. They evolved. Racially motivated gerrymandering, redraws voting districts to dilute the political influence of black communities. Citizens can technically have the right to vote, while their collective power is weakened through distinct design. Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs were created to open doors that were historically slammed shut are being rolled back across the country. The same doors our people were legally locked out of for centuries. Douglass said it clearly: if there is no struggle, there is no progress, and that struggle is not over. Here's what I need you to understand before we close. Black Americans, have every reason to stand with pride if they choose to on America's 250th birthday, because Black Americans helped build America. Our labor created this nation's wealth. Our soldiers defended it in every war. Our inventors transformed agriculture, medicine, transportation, and industry. Our artists shaped global culture. Our activists expanded constitutional rights, not just for Black Americans, but for every American. The Civil Rights Movement gave this country stronger voting protections, employment protections, and equal access laws that benefited everyone regardless of race. Our story is not a footnote to the American story. Our story is the American story. I want you to think about these 3 questions and drop your answers in the comments. 1. As a Black American, what does the 4th of July mean to you personally? Has that meaning ever changed throughout your life? 2. Frederick Douglass fought back against Edward Covey and said that moment restored his sense of manhood. Have you ever had a moment where you decided you were not going to take it anymore? What happened? 3. Douglass asked, what to the American slave is your 4th of July? If he were alive in 2026, what question do you think he would be asking America right now? Drop your answer below. Every single comment is read. Frederick Douglass loved America enough to challenge it. And that's exactly what we do on this channel. We don't hate America, but we demand that America become what it claims to be. If this video spoke to you, share it with your family, share it with your children, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you have not done so already. Like this video and visit our Black History Library at the link in the description. Because owning these books means this knowledge stays in your family long after the video ends. We are unlocking Black history, and we're just getting started. I'll see you at the next video.